Hey guys, my name's Nova, this is Film Express, and today we're going to be talking about the new Knives Out sequel, Glass Onion. Imagine not calling this Guns Out. What a missed opportunity. Guys, I'll be fully honest right off the bat, I have some big problems with Rian Johnson as a director. If you guys know anything about Rian Johnson, he burst onto the scene with a movie called Brick. He spent months and months pitching that movie out to studios, agencies, production companies, literary managers, production managers. Everybody passed on that script. Back in the day, nobody wanted to give Rian Johnson a chance. The only reason Rian Johnson got the funding together to make that movie is because his two parents, very rich parents, put together $500,000 of their own money to enable their son to make the movie that he wants to make, instead of getting a real job. And I think that just says a lot about the type of privilege that some of these filmmakers today have grown up with. And I think that is really unsettling to me in a lot of ways. And just judging by his career trajectory, he's made some decent films. He's had some great contributions on Breaking Bad. But for as many contributions as he had on Breaking Bad, like that episode Ozymandias, he also did The Fly, which is one of the most laughable, out-of-character episodes for Walter White, in which his character almost seems like it was taken from a different show, like the smartest man in the world becomes an idiot in that episode. I find that really problematic overall, and obviously everyone knows about the controversies with The Last Jedi. Basically, Rian Johnson just came onto Star Wars, a franchise that everybody in their right mind would love to direct and love to have a hand in, and he basically switched up all the rules and made up his own type of version of it, which ended up being one of the worst Star Wars films of all time, even worse than the ones George Lucas directed, and we all know how those are really, really bad. Obviously, I'm coming into this with a little bit of a disdain for this director. I wasn't even a big fan of Knives Out, I'll just say it right now. I find that film is just so conveniently written, it's a bit silly, and it really, really hinges on having some really fantastic A-list actors, popular actors like Chris Evans and Ana de Armas, Jamie Lee Curtis. I feel like if it had any other type of cast, it probably wouldn't have gotten as much attention. And I think one of my biggest problems with that film is how it's written, especially the fact that the whole plot kind of hinges on this puking or gagging tic that Ana de Armas' character has. And if you do even just a little bit of a Google search, you would know that psychological disorder of puking or gagging when you lie doesn't even exist. So I feel like right off the bat, he's creating these fantasy worlds where he can create plots that are just so convenient so that he can get his stories across. They don't have real weight in the real world, And while I like some moments of Knives Out, especially that moment between Christopher Plummer and Ana de Armas, the rest of the movie falls really flat. And that donut hole monologue is one of the worst things I've ever heard, to this day. I find it so unbearable. It makes me laugh every time. And I think, Daniel Craig's trying to be serious with that accent, but it's really, really unfortunate. Coming back to Glass Onion, I'll just say it right off the bat. You guys, if you want to skip the rest of this review, that's all good. I hated this movie. I found it incredibly poor from a writing standpoint, from a silliness standpoint. This was the silliest movie of the year. It was ham, it was cheese, it almost came off like a parody. It makes some of the other whodunits that have come out in the past years look much better. And unfortunately, I know this movie is probably going to appeal to many, many people, because I think that a lot of people like really shiny, flashy type of movies that are, that have an all-star cast. I think that a lot of people will eat this up. But I think that, unfortunately, if you start breaking down the script and all the issues within it, you'll see that this film does not hold its weight, does not hold its own, and it doesn't stand on its own two legs. So many problems with this movie, I don't even know where to start. I'll just start by saying that almost every positive in this film, and there are plenty of positives, they all come with a negative. So it really prevents this film from excelling in any department. Well, first of all, this is such a predictable type of cliche mystery. From the first few frames of the film, it really even shows you the answer. And if you have watched any type of film before, you'll know who the person is and what the mystery is right off the bat because of the way Rian Johnson decides to show you this character. And I hate to say that, predictability is my biggest pet peeve in writing. If I can guess where the story's gonna go, why am I gonna watch the rest of the film, right? At least for me, that's a big thing. Another weird decision in this film is that instantly Right off the bat, it's kind of setting itself within a pandemic type of setting in a pandemic era. And by doing so, it's going to make it so that in 5-10 years, people are not going to care about that type of angle in a film. I feel like pandemic stuff is already so dated, and it dates itself in a way where, sure, it works in 2020, 2021, 2022, but in 5-10 years, people are going to laugh, and they're not going to want to see stuff where people are wearing masks, or where the pandemic, the virus, is looming in the background of the film. I find that such a poor decision. It immediately makes it so that the film won't age well. This film is such a victim of telling and not showing. As a writer, the first thing you learn in any type of writer's craft class is show, don't tell. You're supposed to show your mystery unfolding itself. You're supposed to show character through actions. You're supposed to show certain things rather than just saying them in dialogue. There are many directors and many writers who fall victim to this. So Rian Johnson is super guilty of this as well, because in this film, he spends the first hour just explaining to you who these characters are, what their relationships are to each other. Nothing is shown. You don't get any of the nuances in their performance. And then after that first hour of setting up a mystery, all via dialogue and exposition, it spends the next hour explaining that mystery to you, and you just really have to be on board for that. And I find it such a lazy tactic. There are dialogue chunks that on paper would take up the whole page. I find that that's criminal in terms of screenwriting rules. So personally for me, right off the bat, I have so many problems with this film, and I know so many people are gonna eat this up, like no doubt about it, but this is just not for me. So let's talk about some of the positives. Because everything is coming out through dialogue, and everyone is almost in a tongue-in-cheek kind of silly performance, everything feels like it has zero stakes, like there's no consequence to anything, very inconsequential. There's like zero tension. This is one of the big things too. If you have a mystery film and a detective movie, he could have taken a page out of Hitchcock's book and tried to ramp up the tension. Give us something to look forward to. This really tries to be funny and witty in ways where, sure, some lines are funny, no doubt about that, but every single moment that is supposed to be taken serious, you almost just have to take it with a grain of salt, because you're either going to expect Rian Johnson to tell you what happens, or flip that on its head and be like, oh, it's not what you expected, it's something else. And it's very, very poor writing and poor execution. So I'll say this, some of the cinematography and the compositions were great, no doubt about that. The shot list in this film, as many cool shots as there are just as many incredibly pointless shots that break the scene up and serve no purpose to the story. I can think of so many, but think of any scene and there's going to be random edits and cuts within that scene that they don't really serve any purpose other than showing that the director really wants to include and incorporate everything that they shot that day. It really bothered me, honestly. In terms of the performances, there was many a great performance in this film. Catherine Hahn was great, Madeline Klein was great, Leslie Odom Jr. was fantastic. I'm a big fan of his. Janelle Monáe basically steals the show, 100% without a doubt. Hugh Grant has a really cool cameo performance, and Jessica Henwick is probably my favorite newcomer right now. The negatives, on the other hand, you have Daniel Craig being this bubbling buffoon of a character with a really laughable accent, and it's so funny because throughout the film he's calling other people stupid, and he literally calls somebody a buffoon in this movie. And the irony of that is that he never once solves anything himself. It's such a hilarious, weird way to have this character, this detective, completely lack all logic. There's not a logical bone in this man's body. It is ridiculous to have this character be the anchor of a whole series when one, his accent is garbage, two, his performance is ridiculous. He's literally bubbling his way through his performance, and in these moments where his character is supposed to have realized an epiphany about the mystery, it comes off so laughable to me. I don't know how you guys would enjoy that, but it's not for me. Kate Hudson was incredibly insufferable in this movie. I don't know what she was thinking with this performance. It's like she was from a B film while everyone else was kind of acting in A films, all the other ones I mentioned. There's a moment where she screams out, into the skies, like, what is reality, after some of these twists happen. I almost turned off the movie. That was one of the cringiest moments in 2022 films that I've seen. There was a Serena Williams cameo in this film that I'm sure cost, 5 to 6 figures to hire her for that one scene. And it was a waste of space, it was a waste of scene, and it was a waste of talent. Like, Serena Williams should be playing tennis, she should not be acting. The original cast of Knives Out is infinitely more iconic than the people here. None of them are like A-list, top of the line stars, other than maybe Edward Norton, maybe Daniel Craig. But Edward Norton in this, he was good for the first 10-15 minutes, and then his character basically falls apart in all stakes and in all type of characterization. It's funny that Rian Johnson is trying to have this whole eat the rich type of dynamic in these stories, when in reality he's like the most privileged guy and his parents handed him six figures, $500,000 to make a movie. You should not be making a commentary about like rioting against and sticking it to billionaires. Like, you're not the right person for this. The last 30 minutes of this film just gets so convoluted to try to get its point across, to try to wrap this mystery up. It comes with very little tension, like I said, so you're just kind of following along, and it's almost like a tedious PowerPoint presentation of information. I really have problems with that aspect of the film. It's funny because at one moment in the film you have Daniel Craig saying that the only thing he can do is contact the authorities, get the authorities involved, and solve the crime in a good way, as a good detective should. But by the end of the film, he's enabling people to do millions of dollars of property damage, not getting the cops involved, and basically going against what any type of detective would do in any normal scenario. Like, I'm not going to try to boast about my knowledge of detective work or anything like that, but this goes against anything written by Agatha Christie before. This goes against anything done by Hitchcock before. This is like somebody who pretends that they like whodunits, and they pretend like they like mystery and noir films, but they don't know what composes a good, tense-filled, suspenseful mystery film. It's dumbfounding how many times the film literally questions its own story. There are times where a big reveal happens. It's supposed to be super intense, and then one of the characters says, "That's so dumb," or "It's so stupid." And yes, like, it is stupid. Why are you saying that? Why are you even taking any ounce of seriousness away from something that I've invested over 90, 120 minutes into? Like, this is ridiculous to me. So I find this to be a very weak film. There were moments where I thought it could be better than the first one, but it ends up just crapping on itself so many times throughout the film. It's like a joke of a movie, a parody of itself. This feels like a bad SNL skit of a film. Funny enough, I saw this film about a week, maybe a week and a half ago. After watching this film, I took a complete break from watching any 2022 films. If you guys have seen some of my reviews, I've been super critical of 2022 films. I went back and watched movies from the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 90s, the 2000s, just so I can remember what good films feel like. I've watched some incredible classics over the past few days. If you guys know, the Sights and Sounds list of greatest films of all time has come out. While I don't agree with that list fully, I've been watching some of those incredible classics that have cultural relevance, that have strong artistry, that have incredible writing, and it's kind of cleansed my palate of a movie like Glass Onion. But just talking about Glass Onion again is riling me up, because I can't believe that film has gotten to this point, and I can't believe that some people are actually saying this is their favorite film of the year. I'm not gonna like insult anybody, and I'm not trying to offend anybody with this opinion, but I really think that we should just raise the standards for film, because something like this, there's a reason why this went straight to Netflix and only had like 1 week in theater. This is not the type of film that would have gotten made in the 90s or the 2000s. It's not the type of film that would have been successful. And considering that Rian Johnson got invited to the Hollywood Reporters Circle roundtable of screenwriters this year, it's so insulting to some of the great scripts that have come out this year. I don't know what to say about the state of cinema, but 2022 has been like the dark ages of movies, in my opinion. So, as mainstream as it is, this is obviously going to do very well. It's going to be very successful. I don't doubt it. In the week or two that it was in theaters before it was going to Netflix, it made so much money. It made more money than The Fabelmans. The Fabelmans is like a Best Picture frontrunner, even though I didn't like that movie personally. Like, this is a film that, Steven Spielberg put a lot of heart into. No matter the end product, you would expect a film like The Fabelmans to make a decent amount of money, but people are lining up in droves to go see Glass Onion. I find that so concerning. So definitely having a strong reaction to this. So I'm going to try to calm down. Unfortunately, Glass Onion is not for me. that's my review, guys. So my name's Nova. This is Film Express. This is my really, really harsh review of Glass Onion. It's just not for me. I'm really sorry if I seem to go on and on about all the real flaws in this. I have so many notes that I've even just breezed by now just because I don't want to come off like a jerk. Truly, I think this film is going to age poorly, especially due to the pandemic stuff, and it's not something I even want to think about again. It took me a week and a half to get this review out, so that says a lot about how I felt about this. So guys, I'll catch you on the next one. I hope I won't alienate some of my viewers on this one, but I really just had to share, because what is criticism if we're not going to share our bad opinions too, right? Film criticism needs to be alive, and we need to be challenging filmmakers to make better stuff. So guys, catch you guys later. Have a great day. Again, my name's Nova. It was a pleasure.